Hi, welcome to Fearbuster Show. And today I have the pleasure to introduce you to my host, who is Lisa Kent, a web designer who is going to share her fear of spiders. How many of you have the fear of spiders? Have you ever felt stuck on a chair or screaming, seeing just a spider crawling down on a wall? Well, Lisa is going to talk to us how she actually is dealing with this fear of spiders. Hi, Lisa. Thank you very much for coming and joining us on our show.
Hi, Lauren. Thank you for having me. It's really exciting. Probably not my favourite topic to be talking about, but I'm hoping that it can help.
So, first of all, when did you realize that you were scared of spiders?
The first memories I have of spiders is actually a good one, which is why this fear kind of baffled me a bit. My mum, when I was a little kid, I was about probably 4 or 5, when she was doing the housework, she used to pretend that there was a spider called Fred behind the wall. And he would talk to us and she would make up things that he was saying while she was just, trying to keep me busy, really, because she was busy. And so I kind of remember that quite fondly. But then I also remember a bit later on, we had like a hole under the bath. And this big spider was living under there for about, I don't know how long it was. It could have been several weeks. But my stepdad used to feed it pieces of meat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he
Did they eat meat?
I don't know. Well, this one did, and it used to come out to take the piece of whatever it is that he put down for it, and then go back in. Now, I used to watch that quite in a curious way rather than a terrified way. So I think it must have been years later, and the only thing I can remember is that I started having dreams where I thought my stepdad was chasing me through the house with a spider. So all the way from my bedroom upstairs, all the way down into the bathroom downstairs. And I would lock the door until he promised me that he...
That was in the dream, or?
Yeah, you see, the thing is, I do recall this being a dream, like a recurring dream. But also I've got a feeling that might have happened once or twice because he found it funny.
Yeah, just to tease you.
Yeah, and that's kind of a little bit blurred, the reality and the dreams.
So do you think maybe the subconscious mind made it a reality, or the dream became sort of reality because it could have happened once, or it wasn't?
I think maybe it happened once, at least once, and that frightened me enough for me to dream about it again.
Yeah, I mean, the subconscious mind does generalize. So sometimes when one thing scared us, the subconscious mind wants to protect us and is generalize into telling our mind that this is scary and this is going to happen again and again and again. So having it in your dream, it does make sense. So what happened next? When did you react it, or how did you react? Or
so I recall as a young child, sort of going through my teens, living at home, that if ever there was a spider, I would have to get my mum to deal with it, or my stepdad to deal with it. Now, that was part of the problem, because if he did deal with it, I was never sure whether he was going to tease me or just deal with it. So that was quite tricky. But I think the biggest problem actually came when I left home. And I left home, there's just another memory's come back to me actually, when I was 19, and I went to live with my friend. And I do remember going into my bedroom one day, and there was a massive spider above my bed near the ceiling. And she was just as bad as me. So we had to call my boyfriend to come over and sort that one.
So what did you do in the meantime? You just froze, or you just left the room? Or?
Yeah, I used to freeze, and it was a kind of I need to keep looking at it to know where it is now, but I don't want to look at it. So that was always very difficult for me.
Yeah.
Because
what do you think the spider actually represents for you? I mean, I know the teasing, or maybe what you mentioned before with your stepdad, but when you actually see a spider, you said you felt frozen. And yes, you wanted to see it and not to see it because you wanted to keep an eye where does it go. But what's that? What do you think is? What is it that you don't like in the spiders?
What is it I don't like? I've asked
Some
myself
people don't
that.
like the what it looks like. Some people don't like the webs.
Yeah.
Some people, obviously, we connect fear to memory, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
So it would be quite interesting to go into the memory in a session and then really look at what's going on and what is a spider for you. The definition for you, a spider, is not the same definition that somebody else would give because they're just not scared of. So it's a different definition of the spider. Means something else for you. It means something more for danger. What do you think straight away the spider means for you?
For me, it means it's almost like a loss of control of my safety. I really dislike the way they look. So there's an element of disgust there. But to me, it represents something that is a real threat to me. Not so much these days, but definitely at the beginning when I noticed the fear kind of taking over my life, it was definitely something that I felt that it felt like it really could do some harm to me, and yet I was never really sure how it could do that.
Spiders, people like them, people don't like them. We're getting into Halloween and we can look at windows, shops and seeing spiders, fake spiders, web. That can maybe trigger the fear of spiders. I know I worked on someone who, even just a black dot, she thought it was a spider. That was not even a fear. That was like really an extreme phobia. Even a black dot on a wall or on the floor, she thought it was a spider, and that really was stopping her moving forward. We did clear it completely, so she's happy and free, and she has control back. But how, Lisa, can you share to our listeners? You said it got worse. How does that affect you?
Yeah, it got worse because it kind of took my ability to live independently kind of away, because I always had to rely on somebody else to come and rescue me. And when I moved into my flat on my own, I was about 21. I lived in it was on the first floor, but there was a massive tree outside, and I always felt that they were attracted to this tree. And around this time of year, September, October, I would feel that they would want to come in. That's just what they do. But there was a time when I had 3 Pyrex bowls, and I had 3 massive spiders in my flat, and I had to put the bowls over the spiders. It had to be something kind of big enough. Not a glass, because
but that's very brave, because some people wouldn't even be able to do that.
But I had to do it because otherwise I would lose my control of where it had gone, and I had to sleep. It was a studio flat, so I had to sleep in the same room that I lived most of the day in, and I couldn't do that. So I would trap them under these big bowls until my boyfriend could come over and sort them out for me. And I also remember I went on holiday once with my parents, and we went to stay in a cottage in Devon or Cornwall or something, and it was a thatched cottage. And again, I kind of made this assumption that the spiders love a thatched cottage, which is why I would never move into one myself. And the beams were also very low, and those very spindly spiders, the ones with the very thin legs,
yes,
they were hiding in all these beams. Now, I actually gave myself a bad neck on that holiday, because I kept walking around, looking at the ceiling wherever I went.
Yeah, checking everything.
Because,
you lose trust. You don't feel safe.
No.
So you use your eyes like like a detecting machine, and
Definitely.
you keep
Yeah,
looking and scrutining and checking everywhere, making sure that they're
absolutely.
not around, and it is tiring. It's just
It was exhausting because on that holiday, I didn't go to bed until 2 o'clock on the first night, 2 o'clock in the morning, because of the spiders, and also in my bedroom where I was meant to be staying. And I actually ruined that holiday for my stepdad and my mum, because I slept in with my mum because I wouldn't sleep in my bedroom. And Lauren, I was in my 20s. So
so,
that's not.
well, this is what happened with, fear, phobia. There is no logic,
No.
and when we tune into that fear, there's nothing else we can do. It's if we're just into the fear, and we need somebody, like you said, to rescue you in that sense. If you don't have the tools, and if you don't know how to deal with fear, you can go into a frozen state and not be able to move and do anything, or you can get hysterical, or you can scream, shout, but you can't deal with it. So and this is why, as you and me, our listeners, Lisa is also an EFT practitioner, so she's using also emotional freedom techniques that I use with my clients too, and this is one of the tools that helps to release fear. I don't know if you probably used it, Lisa. Do you want to tell us a bit more about your journey about the fear? So it got really bad, even at the age of 20, having to disturb your parents, your mum, your stepdad. How did the fear progress?
So when I was younger, I lived in different places. I did move quite a lot, but whenever I lived on my own, there was always this issue with the spiders, and I moved to a place where the bed was up against the wall, but it had those units that go all around it.
Yes.
And every night before I went to bed, because my bed was so enclosed against the wall with the units, I would have to check down the side of the bed, lift all the covers, make
sure. It's like a routine, like checking everything, making sure everything is okay.
Absolutely.
And it is tiring. It is
tiring. And I would have to.
And can you imagine if you had to share a room with somebody and they're like, "Well, what are you doing? What are you doing?"
I know.
It's So how did you get? How did you decided to deal with it, or not? Because some people don't. Some people say, "Okay, I'm scared of spiders, and I'm just going to leave it. This is me. This is how I am." Some people don't know that actually, when you have a fear, when you suffer from a fear, you can actually clear it. Depending, obviously, what tools and how you and who do you see and what you do. But did you decide to do something, or did you get even worse?
I didn't decide to do something. Someone decided to help me. This was the first part of the journey. I was working as an estate agent, and there was a guy who'd come over from, I think it was the Netherlands. He'd come over to view some houses. And I was taking him around several houses that day on different appointments so that he could have a look. And there was one of these properties that had been empty for quite a long time. And the sink in the kitchen had this huge spider in it, absolutely huge. And I'd been there a few days in a row doing viewings, and when I took this particular gentleman round, I actually showed him into the kitchen. I said, "I'm not going to come into the kitchen with you. I don't want to get near the sink because there's a big spider in there." But now I didn't know that he was like a therapist of some sort, and he was really interested at this point. He said, "What is it? What's the matter?" I said, "There's just this huge spider." I said, "I know it's been there for days." And he said, "Yes, it's still in the sink." He says, "But actually, I think it's dead now." He said, "You seriously won't come over?" I said, "No." And he said, "Oh, your phobia is really bad, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah." And he, very kind gentleman, actually did something with me. Now, I don't know, Lauren, you might know what this was that he did with me, because it wasn't EFT. He made me visualize the fear as a colour and a shape.
Yeah, so that's probably I use a lot of colors, and my listeners will know that I have done some on air little session with other of my hosts. So you can send a color when you're in
Mm.
total fear. You can send. I don't know if that's what he did, but you
Mm.
can visualize a color. You ask yourself, okay, what color do I need to actually clear this feeling inside my body? And then you send the color inside your body.
Yes.
It's not quite easy to do it yourself. So this is why,
No.
you need to be guided. So I would advise anyone to try to do it themselves. But
Mm.
um, I am color therapy and emotrance. Some of the therapies that I use, some of the techniques that I use, but they're very, very powerful, especially when you tune into the actual fear and you want to shift it really quickly. So
Mm.
it made, I mean, I don't know if that's what he did, but it sounds like he did
Sounds
something.
very much
Yeah.
like that. Yes, he did that with me, and then that was my first step toward understanding that I didn't necessarily have to live with this fear for the rest of my
Yeah,
life.
Lisa. So it's true. A lot of people don't even know that. First of all, I always tell my clients, you're not born with this, so there's no reason why you should have it the rest of your life.
Mm.
And a lot of people do not know that actually, when you start having a fear or a phobia, you don't. There are so many different ways of clearing phobia and fears that some of the things may not work, some of the things may work, but there are so many tools out there, so you don't need to live with your fear, with your phobia the rest of your life. Now, sometimes people say, oh, I tried everything, but it didn't work.
Mm.
In fact, I did have a client who had fear of flying, and she said to me, I've tried everything and nothing works. So there's no even point in seeing you. I said, well, you haven't tried me. You haven't tried. I know that I can get rid of your fear of flying. So she was debating and said, okay. She was so bad that she actually came to see me, and we did it. And we did one session. She had to fly really quickly. So, and but she didn't take she didn't drink, she didn't take Valium. She actually did it. And then we did another couple of sessions because there was a few things left. But when people say or think that they're going to keep that fear forever because they tried a few things and it didn't work, it doesn't mean that nothing can be done. It just means that you haven't actually find or tried either the right practitioner, the right therapist, or the right technique that will actually help you. So to everyone out there, just keep going. Don't give up, because sometimes people have tendency of give up just when they're about to actually get their fear cleared. Sometimes it's just a reaction, because sometimes when we had a fear for such a long time, we like keeping it because our subconscious mind like knowing and is used to have it, and it's like becomes a habit, it becomes a routine. But really, just know that if it hasn't worked, just go and see somebody else. You're welcome to come and see me, but just keep trying. It doesn't mean that there's nothing out there and nothing works. It just means that whatever you tried so far didn't work. So you've had the experience, and you're very lucky that he offered to help you.
Mm.
And what did you feel like just to do that?
In a way, it was very interesting that he was so confident as well that he could make a difference, and we really didn't have that much time together. But what it did mean that for me was that there was a door that opened, and I just felt a little bit more brave for a while. Now I didn't keep working with him because it was just literally he
Yeah,
helped
it
me
was
on
just,
that day.
yeah.
But I did get brave enough to go nearer a spider after that. I actually wanted to test what he'd done with me to see if it was working, and I did actually manage to touch a spider.
Wow.
Yeah, which was pretty
Yeah.
amazing. But I have to say, because I didn't carry on with that therapy, it didn't take much for my old ways to come back.
Yeah, so you got the habits also, your way of thinking.
Mm,
You get used to scooting everywhere. You get used
exactly.
to
Yeah.
plan things.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
Um, but um, um, but you did really well, because some people don't have fear of spiders, but they don't particularly want to actually touch a spider.
No, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, I find spiders fascinating because the way they work, and all this work, when you look at the actual web, and so much work done, and spiders sometimes do have this connection with people who passed away, and they sometimes can come back, and it's just I mean, I particularly I know that when my late daughter passed away, and when I'm using a car, and very often we clear the spiders on the windscreen, on the mirrors, and they come back, and it's so weird, and we just look at each other thinking, okay, well, we just call it a windsy spider, and it's just like a little spider, and it's our little friend. So we don't see it as a bad thing. We're saying, okay, well, this is just a sign, and she's still with us, and it's just like, and this is her car, and this is like, and honestly, we clear it, we clean the car, and it just keeps coming back. So it's part of the car, and we just leave it. But obviously, this is not, when you have fear of spiders, some people wouldn't even go and open the door or anything. So how did you manage to control this fear?
Well, it's interesting because I would not say that I am in complete control of this fear as we're talking today. All that has happened is that through using EFT, I have been able to control a certain set of circumstances where I can deal with it. So to go from where I was, where I couldn't deal with a spider by myself and had to have someone rescue me, to now where I live in this house with my partner and his 14-year-old son, and I'm the one that usually clears away the huge house spiders that come in.
Very good.
So it's left to me. So that's how far I've come.
Very good. So just to tell our listeners, EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques. It's a bit like acupuncture without needles. We use pressure points in order to release the emotion that is trapped in your body. And by using the pressure points and also making some statements, you actually start clearing the fear inside your body. So, and you desensitize yourself in that sense. So Lisa has used EFT, and this is how we met actually. Lisa is also an EFT practitioner. I mean, now she's a web designer, but so part of the EFT is one technique that I use in my clinic or when I see my clients online, and it's a very helpful and self-help tool that I think personally, I don't know if Lisa agree with me, but that everybody should actually have. And this is why actually I've opened up online classes for children and for adults, because I really want people to know how to use it. Because if you're in total fear, I'm sure, Lisa, you're probably still using it. If there was something coming up, you would just straight away go into using the pressure points, and you would know what to do. And absolutely, like Lisa is telling us, you haven't cleared it completely, because to clear a fear completely, we would need to go in probably into the memories or into the root of the problem, because it's always better to go right to the root of the problem, and then you actually clear the fear completely. EFT is very good to you're using EFT to manage it. And you've done really well. I mean, because you're now in charge and you're in control, and you're the one who actually is in charge in the house to get rid of the spiders. Yeah. So you're not freezing. You're not in state of completely frozen. You're not calling somebody. You're not wasting your time for half an hour having to wait for somebody to rescue you. So you're the one rescuing everybody else. So you've done really well. And this is how EFT makes a major difference in people's life. It does. Really, it helps you moving forward, and it definitely helped me in my life. So now, how far are you now? What's the
okay? So I think it's one thing that's probably important to say is that I've actually I've used EFT with this phobia after the event. Well, actually, no, during the event. So it's not like I sat down and thought, oh, I really need to try to work on this phobia. I'm going to use EFT because I know how to. It really wasn't. It wasn't a conscious decision. What happened was that one of my worst fears came to be, and EFT helped me during that moment.
Yes, and it actually is really good because it works even better when you're actually tuned in.
Exactly.
It's like a channel. It's like,
Yeah.
you're listening to the radio, you're tuning into that channel.
Yes.
And once you actually tune into the channel and you actually use the pressure points right there at that time, that makes a big difference. It doesn't mean that you can't clear or help or reduce the fear if you're not tuned in, obviously, because when you do session with a client, they're not always tuned in. Or if you do fear of flying, they're not on the planes. You're not going to, but just the sort of it, you can actually tune into the feeling. But when it happened there and then, this is when you actually used it. And you were lucky enough that you've learned it, you use it, you know about it. So what was that feeling like? Can you tell maybe our listeners, like, using it, what was the feeling like, if you remember? What was like an achievement, a relief? What did they feel like to actually be in control?
So maybe if I kind of set the scene, it might help you to understand exactly how it helped me. Now, I'm a bit concerned that I don't want to trigger anybody here with this this story. So here's a trigger warning coming up. But one of my worst fears over the years was having one of those enormous house spiders actually on my body, stuck in my hair, on my face, or anything like that. That was probably my worst fear over the years, which drove me to some of the lengths that I went to in trying to avoid it. But what happened, it was last year, just finished walking the dog, and I was wearing like a top that had quite a high neck on it. And got back from walking the dog. I was in the hallway, just taking his harness off, and I felt something tickle my neck. And I didn't think anything of it, but my human instinct kicked in. So I took whatever it was from my neck and I threw it on the floor, just instinctively, without thinking anything, without making any assumption. It could have been a leaf that had fallen in my top, for all I knew. And this will probably interest you, actually, because it's amazing how fear works. Because I took it off my neck and I threw it to the floor, and what unfurled on the floor was a huge house spider, huge, one of the biggest I've ever seen. And I looked at it on the floor and I thought, oh, I dealt with that well. And then all of a sudden, within seconds, about 5 to 10 seconds, this fear just consumed my whole body. So bearing in mind, it's happened, I've dealt with it, and I thought I'd done really well. And all of a sudden, then the fear overtook me and I was in a state of panic. Now, meantime, my partner's son had got the spider and got it out for me, but I was in a right mess. My heart was pounding. I had like a shivery feeling, shaking. I was really shaking. And at that moment, I thought, I need to do some EFT. I need to do some tapping right now, because right now I'm in that kind of visceral state of fear.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I started tapping just through the points that I could remember in that moment of panic.
Yeah, it doesn't mean, just to tell our listeners, that if you do know tapping, or if you do want to know more, you can always go on my website. There is, or in my book, all the instructions are there. But there is a sequence of tapping points. But if you are in the state that Lisa is explaining to us, it doesn't matter if you don't remember all the points. As long as you start doing it, you're taking control back, because you're then telling your body that, okay, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to work on my body and reduce the heart rate beating fast. So carry on, Lisa. So it doesn't matter, just whatever points it is. So you started doing the points that you remembered.
I did, I started tapping on all those points, and I just kept doing that and breathing until that feeling started to subside. Now, it did. And the way I've experienced fear before, or like a traumatic event like that, is that had I not intervened at that moment, that feeling could have well stayed with me for the rest of the day. Because I would have kept having flashbacks, I would have kept going back to it, I would have been like on high alert for the rest of the day, looking for more spiders. I know how it works with me, and I know that that would have happened. But what I was determined to do was to kind of break the circuit, if you like.
Yeah.
And I knew that EFT could help me do that, because I've had experience with it doing that in the past. So yeah, I just spent probably about 5 to 10 minutes tapping.
Yeah. So it's usually So if we do that just as a self-help tool, just suddenly you can do that. If you're doing it to actually in a proper session, you will do it for probably 50 minutes, an hour. But even if you were doing it usually, even when you feel fine, it's always just to let our listeners know, if in case you're actually using EFT, keep going for 20 minutes. Because those 20 minutes, the shift very often happen between 15 to 20 minutes. This is just my own experiences with my clients, and also when I do online group tapping, that is when I see the shift. So, but it does shift quickly when you tuned into it. You reduce the high alert, so you start feeling better. You start taking your breath back. You start breathing better. Breathing exercise also always good. Your heart beat is going back into normal. What happened is that you dealt with something, and then suddenly your subconscious mind said, oh, but this is like really like a big danger, and then there was a delay reaction, and the delay reaction made it even worse, and that went back up like really bad, like you explained it. So after that experience, did you carry on using the tapping, or what did you think about spiders? Is that reduce the fear?
I definitely think that it had a longer lasting effect than just in that moment, because actually a similar thing happened again a few months later. My partner and I were moving a sofa from one room to another, and just a little trigger warning here again.
So to our listeners, if suffering from fear spiders, just if you do know the tapping, just do the pressure points. But if not, just be aware that this can trigger something.
So when we'd finished moving the sofa, we shut all the doors behind us, and then I realised that again there must have been a spider under the sofa, and it had crawled onto my arm. It was on my cardigan, and this time I brushed it off, and it didn't really. I certainly didn't have the level of fear in my body that happened the previous time. Still there, but it this time it was like, oh, not another spider on me again.
Which is good. I mean, this is what happened with using EFT. It desensitizes you.
That's right.
So,
yeah.
And because you only did it a few times and for a short time, obviously the fear is not cleared, but it's sort of like a high level, and then you go to medium level, and we lower the intensity of the actual fear.
That's it. That's the word I was looking for. The intensity wasn't there this time. And I did do a bit of tapping again afterwards, because again I thought, here I am in the situation that years ago would have absolutely sent me into a tailspin, and I could feel a lower level of fear, so I just used the tapping again just to calm myself down, because I didn't want to get into a space where I had that delayed reaction that you were talking about again. I didn't want that to come. So I used the tapping just to help me get over that. And like you say, I feel that every time something like that happens and I use the tapping, I'm desensitizing myself to that situation again.
So now how do you feel about spiders?
So yeah, it's interesting actually, because I feel as if I've really helped myself to deal with spiders in a certain situation. So the worst one, of course, was if they were on me. I feel like I can deal with that really well now. That was the worst thing that could happen,
yeah, sure.
Scale of fear. But also if they're in the house, if they're crawling across the carpet or whatever, I can go and run and find the spider catcher and I can deal with them. But there is still the fear of if I don't know where they are. So if one has been in the room, and my partner did this the other day, he said, oh, there was a really big spider in the bedroom just now.
Yeah, that doesn't really help to. It's not something you want to actually know,
No,
and that doesn't help you to go to bed. That does not the best thing.
No. So immediately, I'm not in control.
So
and
the
if I'm not
unknown.
in control, then
there could be an underlining fear of the unknown somewhere that we would need to look into it. But we're going into Halloween soon, and usually there's like scary faces, and there's always usually spiders and spider webs. And does that trigger you or not? Just walking past windows, shop, and seeing costumes. I mean, there's quite a lot of costumes with spider webs on it, and even designs.
Absolutely. Now, a few years ago, actually, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I did go to a hairdresser's in my local town, and around the station that I was sat at, big mirror, they put all those fake cobwebs up around it.
Oh yeah, all the decorations. Yes,
and the little spiders, sort of as big as about a 10p piece, were dotted all over this webbing, and I kind of chuckled to myself, actually, and I didn't say anything, but I chuckled to myself because I just thought, this is some people's worst nightmare.
Yes, I mean, definitely. You want to go to the hairdresser just because you want to treat you. It's nice and relaxing. You do not want to sit just facing your fear, seeing spiders. No. But I guess, not all hairdressers will do the decoration for Halloween. But yes, I presume this is something that can happen. Usually, when we have a fear of spiders, it's almost like we attract more of them. They see, because we're more aware and we see them even more. So and if you're not scared of spiders, you don't even see them, or just very rarely in your life you will even see them. I mean, I remember as a child, we went on holiday with my parents, and they didn't pre-book the hotel, and it was in Italy, but they knew the owner because they used to go there for quite very often, and he decided, okay, well, it's no problem. We will still take you because you've got nowhere to go. And so my parents, they found a room, really nice room. But for me and my sister, we used one of the maid room or staff room, bedroom, but it was in the cellar and like in the basement. It was quite a nice room, but spiders, as many as he could. I couldn't care less at all, but my sister was like not happy at all. So we had to swap. So literally, she really couldn't stay. But for me, it was quite nice to know that I didn't care, and I slept in a room full of spiders. I didn't care. But it really depends on your mindset and what it triggers and what it means for you. That can be really, and Halloween can really trigger a lot of different type of fears. Fear of spiders, fear of monsters and masks, and a lot of different fears. But spiders, you're more likely to see them in window shops and a bit everywhere in that sense. So now, do you feel quite like in control if majority of the time?
Majority of the time,
on your mind, as you can get on with your life, it's fine. It's not.
Absolutely. And also as well, Lauren, it's interesting that you say that if you're frightened of them, it's almost like they are drawn to you.
Yes.
So and I'm a great believer in the law of attraction as well. That's one of my favorite things to talk about. But I felt in my younger days that because I was so scared of spiders, I actually would say, they will find me. They will come to me and they will find me.
Yes.
And it didn't, and I would say this to my friends, and they would say, oh, I never get any spiders here. I never see them. And then I remember once I left my friend's house, and he said to me, Lisa, after you left last night, he said, I was just straightening the cushions up on the sofa, and he said, where you'd been sitting, there was an absolutely massive spider.
But this is exactly what you say, Lisa. The law of attraction, it's what you're thinking, you're more likely to attract. So if you're scared of something and you keep thinking of the actual spider, then you're more likely that you're going to attract spiders. It's like when you drive and you think of one particular model and car. So you will see that particular make and model car every single day that you may have never noticed before, because you are directing your thinking into that direction, and that's what's going to happen. And this is why it's so important to be aware and start the day with telling how we want to feel and how we want to actually get our day to be, so that we attract that. So, and also to clear our fears so that we don't attract more of what we're actually scared of. And yes, the spiders, it's not that the spiders feels it. It's just the more we're thinking about our fear, the more you're more likely to actually attract that, because you're putting this in the universe, your frequency, like a radio frequency, you're tuning into that frequency, and therefore that's what's going to come back. And that's so, yes, so you're very right. So Lisa, just tell us a little bit about you. And you mentioned a lot of attractions. We mentioned that you're a web designer. What do you do, and how can people find you?
Yeah, so I do a lot of web designs for, it seems to just gravitate that way, but I actually seem to do a lot of web designs for people who are in the more holistic field. So like, say, beauty, holistic therapies and that type of thing. I seem to do a lot of websites for people running that sort of business. But also my passion and my interest is with law of attraction. So I have an Etsy shop where I make art and gifts, like mugs and things like that, to sort of help people stay focused on the good stuff as they go throughout their day. So they're like little reminders.
And especially now with the pandemic, and we know that we're not coming out of it for quite a bit.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's as it keeps dragging. At the beginning, I think people were more positive, and also it was going towards the summer. We had the sunshine. We could feel the warmth. We could still feel on holiday even if we didn't go out much. But now we're going into the winter, and so
it's important to stay positive.
Yes, so that is good. So how can they find the law of attraction items that you do?
Yeah, so I'm quite active over on Instagram. So you can find me at Align with Abundance.
Excellent.
So if you just look on Instagram, Align with Abundance, you should find me. My name's there, Lisa Kent. And if you're interested in having a website, then you can contact me at info@lisakent.com.
Excellent. And Lisa, what would you tell listeners if they do have a fear of spiders? What's your what keeps you going, and what would you say? Do you have a little mantra or a sentence that you keep telling yourself?
Yeah, I would say everything is figure-outable, which is one of the quotes from one of my favorite businesswomen, Marie Forleo. Everything is figure-outable, which means there's always a way to work something out. And so I would say, if you have got a fear, now lots of people have fears, and it doesn't actually interfere with your everyday life. That's fine. If you can live with it, that's fine. But if it's having an effect on your emotional well-being, if that phobia is giving you sleepless nights, if that phobia is affecting your day-to-day way of being, which impacts negatively on you or anyone else around you, then that's when you really need to believe that there is help out there.
Yeah, there is definitely help out there.
Definitely, and I would say go and see Lauren.
There is. I mean, so far I can say that everyone that I've seen, I've cleared their fear. So, and I've changed their life, and it's really moving forward. In fact, if anyone would like to know more about EFT, please email me at lauren@fear-busters.com, and I will send you a free PDF about the pressure points so that you can have that little tool already ready, just so that in case you are encountering meeting up with a spider on your day, so you would know what to do like Lisa did. Thank you very much, Lisa, for being my guest today. And you're listening to UK House Radio, and I'm looking forward to joining you next week with a new guest. If you'd like to know more about Fear Busters, you can always look at my website at www.fear-busted.com. Thank you very much. Looking forward to seeing you next week.